Do you have any clue what it takes to make a business run effectively and smoothly? It's systems and processes. The more SOPs, standard operating procedures, that you can add into your agency, the better, because everybody's going to have the roadmap on how to do the same thing the same way every time. So in this video, we are going to cover how to add a virtual assistant and then give them the roadmap, all of the standard operating procedures, so that you're putting gas on the fire and growing your agency. Alrighty, in this video, we will be going through the agency owner's guide to setting up systems and processes inside of your agency, as well as for your virtual assistant. So let's get started. So why do we need SOPs? So an SOP is a standard operating procedure. So basically, when you have standard operating procedures for how you're going to operate the agency, everything moves quicker, your quality control goes up, and then your time to fulfill and the cost goes down. So a standard operating procedure defines, here's the exact way we do this task every single time. So when you document your tasks like this, it makes it so much easier to train somebody to do them, and it creates checklists that are easy to follow for anybody to do the task, and it's so much smoother going forward. So we've got a few pieces. One, like I mentioned, consistency. It gets done the same way every single time. So if you want to onboard a client into your agency, you want them to have a white glove experience and feel like your agency is better than any agency they've ever worked with. Let's face it, insurance is largely commoditized. So everybody sees their car insurance as just some bill they have to pay each month. But if you can move the needle just a little bit and it doesn't take that much, then they're going to feel like they got the best experience working with you, and you're going to feel so much different than the other agency down the street. Then we've got scalability. So kind of like I mentioned with training people, if you have your standard operating procedures documented properly, then it's really easy when you hire the next person. You just give them the stack of SOPs and they can take it and run with it, and it's so much easier for you to train them. Efficiency and time savings. So when everything's done the same way every time, nobody's making up their own ways of doing things. Nobody's having to teach a different way. It's all handled the same way. And so if somebody forgets the task, you just give them the SOP document and they can get right on it and get it finished. Reduced errors. So obviously self-explanatory. So when it's done the same way every time, and when they have an easy playbook and roadmap to get it done, they're going to make less errors. And then ownership. So somebody is going to be able to own, hey, I did this task and I did it wrong. Here's where I messed up and here's how we can fix it. So really the goal with standard operating procedures is to turn your agency into a computer. So when you think about a computer, you put in data and it spits out a result, and it does it the same way every single time. And so what I've done, and what I did inside of my agency, is I saw it as a computer and I saw 5 main pieces. So 1, marketing; 2, sales; 3, onboarding; 4, customer service; and 5, renewals. So we'll get into it. So marketing. Where do your leads come from? How do you go out into the world and find people that potentially want to do business with you? How do you bring them in and get them to give you their info so you can quote them and ultimately bring them into your agency? So how do we generate leads from referral or lender referrals? How do we generate leads on Facebook? How do we handle networking events, etc.? Whatever your standard operating procedure is, document it and put it here. Now, also as a part of this, do you want standard intake forms that people fill out so you can gather information? I've got this included on the sales process, but you could also include it inside of marketing. So how do we gather the right information? Do we get on the phone with somebody and take down the info, or do we send them a jot form that they can fill out? They can put in name, email, phone, driver information, vehicle information, etc. How do we analyze what we need? Do we make them fill out a Canopy Connect link? Do they have to send us deck pages? Do we just go through like some type of risk analysis? You have to decide this for your agency. And then how do we go about quoting the lead? Do we plug it in the radar, or do we go specifically to the carriers we think are going to be worthwhile? What is our process like? Do we have minimums? Do we write state minimums, or do we do 100, 300, 100 on bodily injury? All the different pieces you have to decide for your agency, but once it's done forever. And so then how do we get them to switch? This is your actual sales track that you take people through, show them where we're at, show them where we need to be, and then bridge the gap. And that bridge should be buying insurance from your agency. Next, we go into onboarding. So this, like I mentioned a minute ago, is where you have the greatest opportunity to make the most difference with your clients. So how many touches do you want to make throughout the year? Do you want to be consistently following up with them? What do you want them to see? How do you want them to feel? What expectations do you want to set? Is there a specific medium you want to communicate? Do you want them to send their questions to your email inbox? Do you want them to text you? Do you want them to call? If you want them to call, what number do you want them to call? So all the different expectations, you can't expect clients to operate how you want unless you tell them. And so that was one of my issues early on, is I was giving everybody my cell phone, and then I was mad when on the weekends I was getting calls. So I needed to switch and start having people just call the agency line. So then we've got customer service. So you've already sold the client, you've got them in the agency. There's obviously tasks that you have to do. Add or remove drivers, add or remove vehicles, send certificates of insurance, all the different things that come up in the day-to-day. So what are the most common tasks that we do? Start with those. And then how do I want them done every single time? And obviously you may have to do it differently for different carriers. Like you're probably going to have to record a video, how to add a driver in Travelers, how to add a car in Progressive, etc. So it's a little bit time consuming. Sorry, you're trying to build a business that runs without you. So it's just part of it. And then can we use any automation to shorten the time it takes to do these things? So for example, do we want to make a customer service form that they can fill out on the website, that as soon as they fill it out and fill in the info, it will drop it into a service pipeline so that we can track it and make sure it's done? That's something I did inside of my agency, and I would highly recommend it for you. And then finally, the renewals process. How do we make sure we keep the business on the books? So what does my dream renewal process look like? How far prior to renewal do I reach out to them? What does the client need to know? Like, do I pre-record a video letting them know, hey, everybody's rates are going up. Just expect it, but we're going to be proactive shopping you. Do we want to reshop every client? What information do we want? So for example, inside of my agency, 60 days prior to renewal, they were getting texts and emails from my team. And inside of that text was a link to a form. And that was our renewal form. We said, hey, you have to fill this out prior to renewal for us to work on the shopping your insurance. Fill out this link. And it's basically just asking them, hey, have you had any changes? Have you bought anything new inside of your home? Have you made any improvements? Have you added any drivers, added any vehicles? Have you bought any toys, ATVs, anything like that? And so this allows you to, one, properly take care of their risk management, but two, cross-sell your book of business. And so it was incredibly beneficial for myself and my agency, and now the agencies we work with that have done the same thing, it has been fruitful for them as well. So I highly recommend doing that. So from there, communication and project management tools. So you've got the standard operating procedures inside of your agency. It's documented. You've given it to a virtual assistant. Now, how do you communicate with them day to day? So one tool is Asana. So it's a task manager. So you could put your daily tasks that you want the VA doing inside of Asana, and they just check it off every day. And you could have links to those SOPs on your recurring tasks. Next is Slack. Slack is how I like to communicate, but there's tons of different tools. So this is just a messenger app. Everybody can go in and send messages back and forth. You can make different channels. So you can make a marketing one, sales one, etc. And you can tie in automation inside of Slack as well. Zoom or Google Meet. I recommend getting on calls with your team members. So we all know the sales adage, people buy from those they know, like, and trust. Well, it's the same thing for working with people. Your people need to really like you. And the only way you can do that and build relationships is by getting on calls with them and spending time with them. If they are not in the office, you got to figure out some other way, and Zoom or Google Meet is currently the best option. Then you need a CRM, so a customer relationship manager. This is how you follow up with your prospects. And so here's a few that are insurance specific that our clients work with. So Agency Zoom, Agency Block, Agent CRM. There are other CRMs that have their own little versions. There's High Level. A lot of people use Go High Level. It doesn't necessarily integrate with a lot of agency management systems. I know that NowCerts has their own version. I'll mention them in a second. I believe that EasyLinks has their own CRM, but these are some. Agency Zoom is the one that I've personally had quite a bit of experience with, and a lot of our clients use as well. I recommend the Service Center inside of Agency Zoom. So if you are using their pipeline, the sales pipeline, you can also have the service pipeline. And so anytime a customer service task comes in, it will trigger and fire automation as well. Then AMS, which is an agency management system. So you will tie in your carriers with your agency management system so that anytime there's a cancellation, a policy change, etc., it downloads that information into your AMS and notifies you and your team. So it integrates back and forth with the carrier. It will also notify you of commissions. It will help with accounting and things like that. Here's some of the most common AMSs that we work with. So NowCerts, each of these has different pros and cons. NowCerts is one that a lot of agencies that I work with on the commercial side of things use. Better Agency, it has got some elements of CRM tied in as well. QQ Catalyst and EasyLinks are probably the two biggest ones that we work with. HawkSoft's incredible on customer service. So it just comes down to what you're looking for. They're all very different. If you're new to the space, I would recommend getting on demo calls with these people and just figuring it out. There are a lot of new players in the space as well, some AI powered ones. So definitely do your research before getting started, but an AMS is 100% necessary if you're running an independent agency. All right, so now just some tips and tricks. I would highly recommend in any of your workflows, you set deadlines. So anytime something comes into the agency, I always expected that quotes should be done same day. No matter what, we get quotes out the door same day to our prospects, unless it's like end of the day. If it comes in at 4 and everybody leaves at 5, then we have multiple quotes coming in. That's understandable. But you just need to have systems and processes in place. And so you also need to ensure your VA has access to everything that they need. I believe we've covered this in some of our previous videos, but you need to make sure you have LastPass set up so they can log in and get access to the different carriers you need. Make sure they have access to the AMS if they need it. I would definitely recommend the CRM, and then access to all of your different standard operating procedure documents, so that if you have them a daily calendar and it's set up inside of Asana, hey, at 8 you do this, 9 you do this, 10 you do this, and then they have links to all the standard operating procedures documents, should be fairly easy to manage that person, because you can just go in and see, was this checked off? And then you can go into your email inbox or your CRM. Okay, these tasks were finished, and move along the pipeline, and you'll feel the agency getting easier and less stressful for yourself. All right, so some things you need to consider is one, security, cybersecurity. So you need to make sure you've got double authentication, you need to make sure you have secure passwords, things like that. Insurance specific knowledge for your virtual assistant. So they need to know what is bodily injury per person, what's bodily injury per accident, what is dwelling coverage, what's other structures, things like that. They need to understand at least bare minimum pieces about coverage, so that if they're running quotes inside of carriers, it's not just random miscellaneous numbers, and they can kind of think about, this is missing this, and generally it's not. They don't have to be licensed. Most states will allow a non-licensed person to do probably 70% of the tasks inside of an agency. Most states define that a producer, a licensed person, has to gather the information and present the information. But once your producer gathers it, the virtual assistant is just doing data entry to quote it in all the carriers. They aggregate it all, and then the producer presents it to the client. Company specific info. So every carrier is going to do things a little bit differently. So you need to have training inside of your carriers on how to do these things. And then an escalation list. So essentially what this means is, what is more important for that person to do? Should they work on a quote as soon as it comes in? Should they work on a renewal? Should they work on a claim? So have a priority task list where as soon as something comes into the agency, what's the order that we get things done in? Renewals are important, but they're not as time sensitive as a claim. So maybe you move renewals backwards and claims up further. That's up to you and how you want to run your agency. And then cloud storage, do they need to have a spot where they can upload data? So for example, if they're completing quotes inside of carriers, do they pull all those, download the PDFs and upload them in the CRM? Do they upload them into a client file inside of Google Drive or something like that? Again, personal preference for you, just something to think about. So I appreciate everybody watching the video. If this is something that seems beneficial for you and your agency, I would recommend reaching out to my team at Agency Aid. So all the training things that I mentioned, we build this for agencies. So we have trainings on how to quote inside of carriers, how to do most of the common service tasks. We have got trainings inside of the most common AMS and CRMs for insurance agencies. So we should be able to shortcut that learning curve for you and immediately allow you to see impact inside of your agency. So if you have any questions, shoot us an email, give us a call. I'd love to be able to help you. So thank you. Thank you so much for watching this video. In the next video in this series, we're going to talk about building out your processes in technology together. So you learned about standard operating procedures. Next, we're going to talk about using technology and building automation that takes away the time that actual humans are having to spend working inside of the agency. So click subscribe, like, and comment. Let us know how we can help you. And I look forward to watching your agency grow to the next level.